Welcome to Season 5 of the Funding Love Adoption Podcast with Mal and Kate. We are two adoptive moms that seek to love, support, and elevate all corners of the adoption triad through honest conversation. This season, we are continuing through our series of walking through the adoption journey step by step by sharing stories, tips, and advice we have learned along the way. So pull up a chair and sip your favorite beverage because everyone has a seat at our table. We are Funding Love, the podcast. Hi, Funding Love family. Thank you for tuning in to this week's episode of the Funding Love podcast. But before we get started, I just wanted to take a moment to remind you and personally invite you to the 3rd annual fundraising gala, A Night of Dreams. Let's just say that this year's event is going to be, well, the greatest show. It is going to have a silent and live auction, full-plated dinner, amazing programming, and a VIP cocktail hour for our VIP guests. It's going to take place on April 25th at the Four Seasons Resort Orlando, and we hope to see you there. For more information, visit our website at fundinglove.com/Night of Dreams. Now let's get back to the show.
Hello and welcome back to episode 3, season 5 of the Funding Love Adoption Podcast with Mal and Kate. I almost forgot what episode we were on there for a second. I stalled. But we're going to continue the conversation about the adoption process. For those who are thinking about getting into the process, those who might be right in the middle of the process, that is what we're talking about. Just kind of a continuation of season 4. We're just going to continue on the journey.
Or if you know someone that is curious about the adoption process or going through it, please share this resource with them. We love to be a source of education and awareness in the adoption community. Be sure to subscribe if you're watching on YouTube or hit subscribe or follow on any of your podcast platforms. Feel free to leave a comment as well or share on social media and tag us. We love to see when people find our resource helpful. So
and just interact with us because we love having these conversations. That's why we do what we do.
Yeah.
So this episode, we're going to talk about preparing your home and family for the arrival of a new baby.
That's right.
Yeah. So this conversation could very easily be very similar to anybody who welcomes a baby into their home, biological or not. So a lot of that is, let's talk about what do you need in your home for baby? Like the actual things. It's very little right off the bat.
Yes.
So last episode, we talked about your match and your call could be quick. What if you get a call and the baby's born? You go pick the baby up the next day.
Right.
That could be a quick turnaround. You're like, oh my gosh, I don't have anything. Well, you don't need much. If you're a first-time parent, if you're a seasoned parent, you know this, but you really don't.
Yes.
Let's talk. What would you have if you got a call? You need something for baby.
Well, let's just.
You can Instacart it. You could even like DoorDash it. It's that simple.
Target run. Yeah. I mean, I even tell this to women that are pregnant with their first child. I'm like, listen. Narrow down the baby item list. I promise you don't need a wipe warmer. You don't need the diaper genie.
You don't need a bottle warmer.
You don't need a bottle warmer. It's so minimalistic. What you need to actually care for a baby is bottles, formula, diapers, a car seat. You are going to need a car seat.
To
that
leave the
is the
hospital.
one legal thing you will need. The hospital or the agency or wherever you're picking up baby, we want to make sure they get there safely.
And then the baby needs to sleep in something. So,
and you don't need the Pottery Barn crib. If you get the Pottery Barn crib, we are so excited for you
because it's beautiful.
But a pack and play will work just as well.
Pack and play, any sort of bassinet just to get started. It's very minimal. So you could do a quick Target run and be in and out and have everything that you need. And just know also if the baby is coming home from a hospital, they will equip you with at least diapers and formula for a few days to get going. So you will have that as well if you are bringing baby home from hospital. So very, very simple to prepare your home. And I know we talked about this last season, at least it's coming to me.
We did.
For some people for those who start the adoption journey and want to have their nursery ready right away. And I think that's great it's really a personal thing of like, if you feel like you want that space ready. For me and my husband and our family, when we, before we brought our oldest home, I didn't really want the nursery set up like a nursery. It was just our guest room. And I didn't we had a crib, but it wasn't put up yet. My parents had got us a crib. So we had a crib. I had some clothes, but it was kind of still in boxes. I didn't feel like I wanted it fully ready until we got that call. So when we did, it was a real quick put the crib together and bing, bang, boom. But yeah, we were those on the other side who didn't really want it. So
I
it's
think
kind
it
of a
really
personal thing.
depends on, your personality. It depends on how hard your journey's been. I know for some women, they make that nursery look great and they go in there every night and dream about the baby that's coming.
Oh, yeah.
And that's great. Some women will do that and then be sad when they hear the no. And then you just have to shut the door and kind of like not look at the room for a while. That's okay too.
Yeah.
There's no wrong way to prepare your home for your baby because like we said, a baby doesn't need much and you can add all the extra little things later. The sign with the names and the cutie booties that match all the outfits, like all of that can come. What you need to start is really minimalistic.
Yeah.
But preparing with physical items is not the only way to prepare after you get the call.
No. I mean, it's not. I mean, we've talked about this even just last episode about preparing your heart for the expectant mom, the birth mom, about where is your heart posture towards her and where is that tension there for yourself. But it goes beyond just you and your husband or you and your partner. It's about the extended family that's going to be in this child's life, of preparing them for this baby, because we know biological children come into the family expected.
Mm-hmm.
Now, when you bring a child home through adoption, they could be a different race.
Mm-hmm.
They could have special needs. There could be a lot of those other, you could have a special needs child too, biologically, but welcoming a child in these things that extended family don't necessarily expect or maybe aren't ready for. So those conversations are very important to have. And it seems silly to be having that conversation right now in this day and age, but there are some grandparents and there are some brothers and uncles and family members who, if a white family was to bring home a child of color or of any different race, that would be alarming to their extended family. Mm-hmm. And so those conversations are very important to have to prepare them, because ultimately it's about you and your partner, but still this child needs to grow up in a nurturing environment. So dive into that a little more if you have any thoughts on that.
Yeah, I think you kind of hit the nail on the head. Talking to grandparents, aunts, uncles, friends about the child that you've been matched with. I know that you don't always know everything, but maybe sharing not their whole story, but little details of things of what to expect. And maybe even setting some standards and boundaries, like we're not going to say things this way. Going ahead and informing them on adoption language.
Yes.
Not using things like words like real mom or
gave up for adoption.
Gave up. Mm-hmm. And like you said, too, going ahead and nipping any of those racial tensions in the bud, because you want your baby to grow up in a safe and healthy and happy environment.
Yes.
And hopefully you've already had those conversations, as we talked about with your profile book and your home study, knowing what to say yes to in your openness. But still, sometimes you might be open to something and then you realize later that grandma doesn't exactly respond in a healthy way. And so preparing them for that, I think, is super important. Yeah. I also think there's some boundaries and things to discuss as well in bringing home a baby through adoption versus biological, because it is so important to bond with your baby. Mm-hmm. Thinking about it from an adoptee perspective, we've heard from many adult adoptees that say even if they were adopted at birth, there is still a separation loss there. That baby grew up in a womb hearing its mother's sounds, smells, feeling all of the feelings that their mom is feeling. Just surrounded in an environment that's very different, most likely from the one that they will be coming into. Mm-hmm. And so that's trauma. I mean, it's kind of a yucky word to use in a lot of ways, but that's
it seems like a dramatic word to use, but it is still
there's a level of trauma there that
there's an immediate loss. They're
adjusting to a brand new situation. Yeah. And so it's so important to spend that time bonding with your baby. Yeah. So maybe set those expectations with grandparents, aunts, uncles, friends, that it's super important for you to hold baby the majority of the time. It's super important for you to give the baby the bottle instead of grandma feeding the baby the bottle, because you really want to build those initial bonds.
Yeah.
And setting those boundaries up front.
Yeah.
help make the whole transition smoother.
Yeah, no, those are things that I did not think about in my journey. I was just very possessive. So I was like,
It was your instinct anyway.
it was, yeah, I'm going to
But
hold.
everybody comes in and
Yeah.
sometimes we can be people pleasers and we're
Yeah.
just like, I want to feed the baby. And you're like, okay. When, you really feel like you need to build that bond and that trust with your child of
Yeah.
like, these are the people that are going to
And it's even
meet my
true.
needs.
It's even true, like in the middle of the night. Like I had my mom even offered, and some even friends locally, like, hey, would you want me to come and do a couple nights and you can get some sleep? I'm also just kind of like, I'm going to do it kind of personality. But now thinking through this conversation that we're having right now, it is very important for mom or dad to be those ones in the middle of the night, nurturing, picking up, holding, feeding. Not to say you can't have any help. Not to say that you can't say, hey, please, I need some help. But I think the majority of that needs to be. I think that's a good good advice.
And I think we could go through those ways to help, right? So maybe you tell your family that a better way to help, instead of saying, can I hold the baby while you fold laundry? Can they fold laundry while you hold the baby?
A meal.
Can you cook the meal or bring a meal?
Wash the bottles.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. So doing some of those tasks around the house while you have a chance to sit and hold baby and bond with baby versus handing baby off so that you can run around doing all the tasks.
Now, you might not have an answer for this, but did you feel like you needed to prepare your family in a way?
Gosh, looking back, I felt like I was so naive, which is why I can come here in a place of giving advice. I will say that I definitely did not expect bonding to be as challenging as it was. And I'm not saying that in any kind of negative way towards my son or even myself. I think no one talked to us. Yeah. Like I said previously about why we started Funding Love is we had so much support on the front end, but not a ton of education like that. Yeah. And then on the back end after finalization, I really didn't feel like I had anywhere to go. I didn't know any other close, really adoptive moms that I think were vulnerable enough. I did know other adoptive moms, but then when you ask them, they're like, oh no, it's just like having other baby. It's just like bringing home a biological. So it was like, there's like a little element of shame in admitting that it's different. And so I just didn't feel like I had anybody that would be honest with me about like, why doesn't he let me rock him to sleep? Why does he, he doesn't really seem to want me to hold him?
Why is he not soothed by my
Why isn't he soothed by me rocking him? Yeah. And so those were challenging times, and I just feel like I was really naive, and I thought I was doing something wrong when really I was doing all the right things. Yeah. By continuing to rock him and put him to bed and give him his bottles. But that expectation in my mind of it being like clicking right away, I think
you didn't prepare your heart for that, because then that can make you feel like, oh, I'm not fit for this, or this isn't, what did I do wrong? Yeah.
Right.
But as far as preparing your family as well, did you feel like you needed to do anything there, or no? Or even your kids, bring in your biological children. How was that? I mean, did you feel like there needed to be a conversation there? Granted, they were 9 years younger, so they were much younger. I mean, Jack was 6.
He was 6.
He was 6. That's so young.
They were
your oldest.
Yeah, 6, 4, and 2.
Yeah.
So it really, I think for them, felt very similar to bringing home previous siblings. It just mommy's tummy didn't grow.
Right.
But I think that having watched me go through pregnancy, Jack and Cole, it kind of helped them to understand like
the difference.
The baby is still coming through someone's belly.
Yeah.
So yeah, having those conversations. I remember for Lorelai, our daughter, who had not had a baby come into our family, she was the baby. I let her hold baby dolls. Yeah. And be like, oh, a baby's going to come and they're going to be like this. And this is how we're going to hold a baby. Do we hold a baby like this? No, we hold a baby like this. Kind of teaching them with a baby doll of like how to be gentle, how to be loving. But yes.
I felt like it was going through the adoption process the second time for our youngest was a really cool time to have conversations with Livy about her story and her adoption and how like, oh, we did this just for you, and like kind of talking through the process with her and her tummy mommy and her baby sister's tummy mommy. So all of those things that she got to see the whole way through. And we had the opportunity also to meet our youngest Ellie's birth mom before she was born. So, and Libby was with us. So now she was able to kind of see the baby in the belly and then so it was actually really cool. And I didn't think about that going into this conversation here, but how that was a little bit preparing our home and her for the arrival of this baby, and how she could kind of, in her own way, actually have this cute little bond already with her baby sister, in that similarities of saying like, oh, that was just like me, or that was just like me. So we were able to kind of talk her through that. And she was not even 4 yet, but she has like, she's decently aware of life.
She's very bright.
So she's aware of life. She's got some common sense to her. So she was able to piece some of that together. So that was a really cool, honestly, I was very grateful for the ability to have those conversations and her to kind of, I guess, I don't know, own her own adoption, I guess. Yeah. So that was in a way that I didn't even realize that I guess we were preparing our home. And for me, preparing my husband for another baby is a whole thing.
Yes.
Yeah. Admittedly, he loves his children, but does not love the baby face. So that was a lot of preparing our own expectations with each other. Okay, what are we gonna do here? Mm-hmm. So that was a way we prepared our home too. Mm-hmm. I never felt like I needed to have any conversations when it came to and maybe I should have hindsight of before we match with our kiddos, with my family, my brothers, sisters, aunts, uncles, about the race of our child. I never did. Looking back, I probably should have, of saying like, we're on this journey. We're open to a lot as far as the child doesn't need to look like us. And in our family, I think, not that they wouldn't have accepted, but I think that was like something that was a little uncomfortable for them.
Okay.
You know what I mean?
Yes.
And so looking back, I wish I would have handled that a little better, of just saying, hey, listen, there's a lot of unknowns here. We want you to support us in this, and, kind of have those conversations. So I never felt like we needed to, or I felt like we thankfully didn't have to, but I should have.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yes.
Yeah. So yeah, there's so many small things that you can prepare your home for.
Mm-hmm. And I know we'll have to end this episode on like an up note, but I hate to be the like bearer of bad news, or the one that's like, but always remember that even though you've gotten the call and even though you were matched, this expectant mama is still mama. So the baby does not belong to you.
Nope.
It does not take your name.
Nope.
Until it's all said and done, until papers are signed, and she's willingly signed papers and knows the choices that she's making. And so, not that you should guard your heart. Again, I don't want you to not get attached to baby and expectant mama, like really leaning in and loving on her, even if it's from afar. But just remember, it's always a possibility, and kind of like keep your heart in a space of love for her, and knowing that it is still her baby. It will always be her baby, but it's not.
She's in charge of
legally your baby yet.
Yeah.
So keep that in mind.
We'll talk about this season as well, as of like what to expect in the hospital, those sort of things. Yeah, and how to handle the hospital in an ethical way.
Yeah,
and so. I mean, I have some experience there as a nurse, but also from our journeys that we can talk about. But this was a great, simple episode, honestly, about just practical things that you can take with you if you're on this journey, and just to be ready. And I don't want this conversation to like have you in like a tailspin of like, oh my gosh, I didn't think of all of these things. These are just conversations, because a lot of these things that we're saying don't even really necessarily need particular action. It's just kind of thinking about them and being aware of the conversations that maybe should be had.
Right.
Yeah. I don't need you to like go on Amazon and get all of the pack and play. None of that. Just a fun conversation. But yeah, anything else before we wrap and head and close up here?
I think that we covered it.
I think we did. Thank you all for tuning in to another episode of the Funding Love Adoption Podcast with Malachite. We'll see y'all next week.
Thank you for tuning in to this week's episode of the Funding Love Podcast. Funding Love is a crowd-funded nonprofit, which means that people like you can help make a lasting impact in the lives of adoptive families and birth moms. Visit our website at fundinglove.com today to give, visit our swag shop, or purchase tickets to our upcoming fundraising gala, A Night of Dreams. When you partner with us, you are funding love.